G'day all. I've been asked quite a bit about my AK loadout during games and things like that when I die and someone picks up my weapon or whatever. Mostly in SMD since that's mostly what I play. So I thought I'd do a video on it. This is my third take at this, trying to get it under half an hour, so I'm going to just get started. So my main loadout here is, well, I'll go through the weapons first. So the AK and the VLK. So the AK has the Spetsnaz Elite barrel for that increased damage range. I use the canted hybrid, although you could use something else. That's just my personal preference. I know some people don't like this particular sight. They think it's a bit awkward or whatever, but personally I really like it. I use the close quarter stock for the improved aim down sight time, stipple grip tape for the same reason, plus the improved sprint to fire speed, and the Commando foregrip to control some of that recoil. But you could also use either FMJ to that bullet penetration, so that you can shoot through walls and that sort of thing a bit better. So generally I'll switch between them depending, but for most people I think the Commando foregrip's going to be better, particularly if you're on a controller too. So the VLK, my main focus with this loadout is to get the most damage range I can. So I use the Forge Tech Marauder, which gives me a bit of sound suppression, extra damage range, and a tighter pellet spread. The other thing too with the tighter pellet spread is also a good thing with pretty much any shotgun. If you're an accurate shot, generally that's the way to go. Use the Warlord barrel, which gives me again better damage range and tighter pellet spread. The Dragon's Breath is really just for show. There's not really any particular advantage to this, other than sometimes you can hit someone with a few pellets, not quite enough to actually kill them, but if you have the Dragon's Breath, then it does continuous damage to them for a few seconds, and that can sometimes be just enough to get the kill, so that can be useful if they're going around a corner or you can't get that second shot off for whatever reason. But it does reduce your damage range slightly, so that's another reason to increase your damage range as much as possible in every other way. Stipple grip tape is mostly useful for the sprint to fire speed, since I don't aim down sight with any shotgun, and FMJ as well. So that's my loadout for the VLK, and most of my shotgun loadouts you'll see will have a similar setup in that they're focusing on damage range, pellet spread, and that sprint to fire speed. I also use EOD on this one. This is obviously to deal with the grenades and that sort of thing. If I wasn't using that, I'd be using cold-blooded, but in Search and Destroy you tend to find less kill streaks, particularly things like like the VTOL, and that isn't used as much, so you're pretty safe to use EOD. And of course Amped is good for switching between these weapons fast as well. Thermite's really good for getting rid of shields and that sort of thing, and a stun grenade is of course great for if you know someone's in a room, chuck a stun in there and then clear the room. So that's my main loadout for S&D, and my other loadout that I use for S&D on smaller maps is this one here, where I have a shortened AK, which is the AK-74U, which is just the AK, but I've just named it this way. For this I use the compact barrel, which gives me better aim down sight speed and movement speed, but gives you a bit more recoil, so that's why I use the Commando foregrip with this one, because generally you don't have to worry about it too much, but if you are doing any longer shots, which I tend to find, I still do quite a few long distance shots even with this loadout, so and instead of switching to the Val, I'll just keep using this AK. So that's why I use the Commando foregrip for this one. You could swap this out for, again, similar to the other AK, you could swap it out for FMJ or even sleight of hand, but again, I tend to find I don't really go through all of the 75 rounds because you only need one bullet. So I still burst fire this mostly, I don't really do much continuous fire with it. Which on that note, yeah, the 75 round drum mag is mainly just so you just don't have to reload with this thing, especially if you don't fire too many bullets. The stipple grip tape for the better sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed, and the close quarter stock for the better aim down sight speed as well. I really like this gun for SND, but it's also really good for you know, those other more hectic game modes, such as domination, that sort of thing. And for my secondary for this one, I used the Val. Now I've got the longer barrel on this one for the damage range and bullet velocity, because it does seem to be lacking in bullet velocity a little bit. I also use these 10 round mags, which increase your damage and give you better aim down sight speed and better bullet penetration as well, which is also why I'm not using FMJ, because you don't really need it for this gun. I use the canted hybrid as usual. I use this on a lot of my weapons. I really like this sight, but you can use whatever one you like. And I also use this stock, which gives me better aim down sight speed. Cold-blooded on this one, which I tend to switch between them. So if in Search and Destroy someone does bring out a or I know that someone's about to bring out a VTOL or something like that, or I'm suspecting it, I'll bring out this loadout. I also use Spotter on this one so that I can help my teammates a little bit with getting rid of mines and that sort of thing, or claymores if I'm noticing that a player is using them a lot, and then the usual thermite and stun grenade. Another one I use is this CR56 AMAX. On this I have the monolithic suppressor, which gives you more damage range and a bit of sound suppression. Canted hybrid as usual. I'm using these 10 round mags here, which give you more damage, better aim down sight speed, more bullet velocity, very similar to the Val. The stippled wrap is the same as the stippled grip tape, does the same thing with the sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed. And sleight of hand on this one because I tend to reload quite a lot, you know, because I've only 10 rounds. So for this one I do use that, but you could replace this with the close quarter stock, and that's probably a better thing to do anyway, really, with this particular gun. So I'll probably switch between these at some point. On this, the Glock is actually just the X16, but the X16 is modelled after the Glock. They just couldn't use the name for licensing reasons, so this is essentially a Glock. I used the largest barrel on this one, which gives me better damage range and bullet velocity. The monolithic suppressor for the damage range again, because I'm trying to maximize the damage range with this particular gun. I'm actually using a Kimbo on this, so I don't need any kind of optic or anything like that. I also don't need the stippled grip tape. So, I mean, you could use it for the sprint to fire speed, but essentially a laser is going to do you pretty well with this particular loadout. Basically anything with the Kimbo, because you're, you know, hip firing it. The 1mW laser is going to be good for that. And then the 17 round magazine so that you can continuously fire without reloading for a while. Cold-blooded on this one. Ghost because, well, I mean, it's silence for one, but really Ghost is just because if I'm not using Overkill, I don't really use any of the others, so I'll just use Ghost for the sake of using something. Sometimes I'll use Restock if I'm using smoke grenades or something like that. But generally I'll either use Overkill, and if I'm not using that, I'll use Ghost, and then Amped to switch between weapons faster. But with this particular loadout, the switch weapon time isn't really that slow from the primary to secondary, so you could swap this out for something else like Shrapnel, Spotter, something like that. And then the Thermite and Stun Grenade as usual. This is one that I don't really use. I just kind of set this up to sort of, you know, show off a skin at some point. I'm not particularly a fan. I mean, the Fennec is pretty good, but yeah, I'm not a particular fan of either of these guns really. And they're not bad or anything. It's just, but yeah, may as well show you how I've got them set up anyway. So the monolithic suppressor on this one. I've got the damage range increased on this as well. Command of foregrip for the recoil control, but this thing doesn't really have, well, at least for me, it doesn't really have that much noticeable recoil, so as you can see it's really just for show because it matches. I would probably be better off using the no stock option, I guess. And then this Void 2 is the same as the stupid grip tape, it has the same effect. And then FMJ. Really this probably isn't the best loadout for this particular gun, but as I said, I don't really use it, so it's just how I had it set up. And the Fennec's a similar deal. I don't really use it, so but this is probably better than the last one as far as being more functional. So this has an integral suppressor that gives you better damage range, better recoil control, more bullet velocity, and a bit of sound suppression. Then the stock gives you better aim down sight speed, and the Merc foregrip for the hip fire accuracy and recoil control. Stipple grip tape for the sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed, and FMJ. Cold-blooded on this one, and amped, and then thermite flash grenade. Next up is the SKS. I'll probably show you a couple of different versions of this. Since this is one I have several different loadouts. I mean, I do with a lot of my guns, and I'll probably do more videos at some point like this, if I can keep them short enough. I'm just sort of aiming for about 20 minutes, but you know, anything under half an hour is good. So yeah, the monolithic suppressor on this one, but you could definitely swap that out. And I mean, I don't know about this. It's hard to really sell using this stock on it. But you know, either a monolithic suppressor, or you know, you could change the ammunition to the 10 round mags, whatever you want to do. But just remember that this will make your aim down sight speeds worse, as well as the thermal hybrid does also. But anyway, so this is my thermal version of this that I used last. So the thermal hybrid, so I'll also be using smoke grenades with this. I use the hybrid because I get that extra sight, so if I'm not, or if I'm more in a close range situation, it's much better to use the additional reflex sight that's on it instead of the thermal sight itself. I use the FSS Para on this because it gives better aim down sight speed, and again, because I'm playing hardcore, I don't know if I mentioned it in this take, but I basically only play hardcore, so all of these loadouts are specifically geared towards hardcore. So this is a one-shot, even with this loadout. And the Commander foregrip, which improves the recoil control, or whatever it says, recoil stabilization. And I mean, that makes this thing almost a laser beam. You get almost no recoil with it. But again, you could swap this out for something else. This is definitely a gun that's really versatile with loadouts. You can change it a lot, and it's still really good. And our FMJ to shoot through walls and stuff. Anyway, so I'll actually show you a couple other things I've got going on here with this gun. I also use a sawed-off version, which has a small reflex sight on it, and same barrel, but with the sawed-off instead. And the aim down sight time with this is incredibly fast, especially with the 10 round mags, which also improve your aim down sight time, and the Commander foregrip. And this thing is phenomenal. It's very, very good. And you know, like this thing for like I've used this in Kill Confirmed. It is fantastic. Oh, another one I have is the for my longer range shooting. This one's pretty good. So I used the PU scope for this one. The SKS rifle stock, which this just improves the aiming stability because it's more longer range orientated. The 10 round mags again, because the aim down sight time is really good. FSS Para for the same reason, and the Commander foregrip. So again, this thing is, you know, its aim down sight time is fantastic, and yeah, it's probably one of my favorite rifles as far as semi-automatic goes. Definitely my favorite marksman, that's for sure. So yeah, I can definitely recommend this. It's very versatile. You can play around with the loadout a lot with this, and a lot of things work well with it. But let's move on. So the 725, the choke, again, similar with the other shotguns, the focus here is the pellet spread, damage range, that sort of thing. So aim down sight time to me doesn't really matter, since why would you aim down sight with a shotgun, but you know, whatever. So yeah, the choke's good for that. The Tempest 32-inch competition for the same reason as the choke. The 1 milliwatt laser for that hip fire, since you know, I'm only hip firing this thing. The Tempest Slim Grip on this is good for the sprint to fire speed. Like I said, I don't really aim down sight, so it's mainly for the sprint to fire speed. And FMJ on this one. Cold-blooded and amped, so you know, the usual, you know, can't get killed by VTOLs, that sort of thing, and amped for the switching between them fast. Thermite and smoke grenades, obviously, because I'm using a thermal here. Another one is my MP5, a silenced MP5. So this has an integral suppressor. It also has the 10mm auto 30 round mag, so this increases its damage and range. These are very good. They do give you a bit more recoil, but with this gun I tend to not really notice it very much personally. So if you have a bit of a problem with that, you could adjust some of this stuff like the Commando foregrip or something along those lines, but personally I don't really have a problem with the way it is. As far as the stock goes, really I'm just doing this for the look of it because this is a really nice looking gun the way it's set up now. But normally I would use the close quarter stock for the aim down sight speed, because aiming stability on this gun with this loadout is not really relevant. You know, even though I would be aiming down sight with it, I'm usually using this at close range, so it's not really a big deal. And then sleight of hand, because you go through the ammunition fairly fast with this particular loadout. Good for domination, kill confirm, that sort of thing. My Renetti loadout has a monolithic suppressor for the damage range and a bit of sound suppression. The burst mod for 3-round burst. 27 round mags so that you can continuously fire for a bit because it's akimbo, so it's useful just to you just continually fire this thing. Again, really good for something like kill confirm, that sort of thing. The XRK Pro grip is actually the same as stipple grip tape. Oh no, it's not. Hang on. No, it's the speed grip is the same as stipple grip tape. Okay, so yeah, this is for recoil control. Oh, that's right. Yes, because the burst mod does give you a fair bit of recoil. So I haven't really used this for quite a while. So yeah, this is a loadout I used to use sometimes, but not a lot. And even when I did use this, I wasn't using the Renetti. I was using something else. I can't remember what it was, but it was a different pistol at the time. But then I changed it to Renetti, and then I pretty much stopped using it. For this one, I use EOD because again I was using it in you know, domination, kill confirm, that sort of thing. Ghost because I didn't really need overkill, and none of the others really seem suitable. And spotter to see those pesky claymores and mines and that sort of thing. Thermite and stim, which again, stim is something I used to use a lot. I don't really use stim anymore. You know, like especially since I play hardcore, it's, you know, usually if you get shot, you're usually dead. But you know, I used to use it a bit. I tend to find a stun grenade is a lot more effective, or at least a lot more useful than a stim can be. So yeah, that's the reason behind that. Next up is one that I'm actually going to be replacing soon. I have no need for this, so now that I have the loadout down here with the AK and the Val, I don't really have any need for this other loadout anymore. This loadout was actually made specifically for shipment at the time. So this AK loadout is exactly the same as the other one. Fantastic for close range and something like shipment. This is I've got some great matches in shipment with this, because I'm not really a fan of shipment. But if I'm going to play it, then I want to be playing it with the thing that works best for it. And for me, this works really well. And the other thing about shipment that was kind of annoying me was getting shot in the back a lot. So I had the Riot Shield. I basically never used the Riot Shield. That's why the level on it is so low, because I don't really use the Riot Shield. I never switch to it basically. So this just stayed on my back most of the time, and yeah, it can sometimes stop you from being shot in the back, as well as if you are being shot at, you can hear it if it's hitting your shield. So if someone's using even a silenced weapon and they're hitting your shield, if you're quick enough, turn around, shoot them, whatever. So yeah, it can be useful, but generally, you know, I don't find this as necessary as I used to. So these days, if I was going to do shipment, I would go back to this loadout here. I mean, the Val would not be used, but it's one of those things, you know. It makes a little bit of difference, but not enough really for me. So I tend to just not use it. I was using cold-blooded, but I think most of the time I had this on EOD, and then shrapnel was the other thing I had it on, because I don't switch between them. I didn't need to worry about the fast switching time. So you know, instead of using amped, I was using shrapnel. So I had the two grenades there, and then thermite as usual, and stun grenades. So I'll probably replace this one with another loadout at some point. And since I'll be doing more of these videos at some point, yeah, I'll go through all these again later on, and you'll be able to see what I've changed and what I've added here to replace this one and that sort of thing, as well as some more variants of these same weapons, because I've got a lot of these weapons here. I've got different variants of, but I won't go through them today because this video is already going to be long enough. But another time I'll go through some different variants. This one here is really only used for custom games, as you can see with the levels. I don't really use it that much. mainly just for custom games where these don't level up, and yeah, and they're really just for show. These just look great. They're fantastic looking weapons. So yeah, I mean, I may as well go through it anyway, but this is not really a very practical setup. So I've got the reflex sight on here. This does improve the aim down sight time, so that's at least good. Commander 4 grip, oh, that's for the recoil. Stipple grip tape, which I get, yeah. So actually, this is okay for functionality, but it definitely was originally set up for show. And then yeah, sleight of hand. You could probably swap that out with FMJ, particularly since sometimes in these custom games, some people don't want to play hardcore, so I'll play a custom game and swap this out for FMJ. The Car 98, I really like this one. It's probably my favorite to use in custom games. So the aim down sight time on this particular loadout, the way it is now, is really fast because everything here that I've got on it is specifically for that reason. So the tac laser gives you very fast aim down sight speed, and as you can see there, it improves that. And you don't really have to worry about the laser being visible to enemies because it's only visible while you're aiming down sight, as well as being the type of rifle it is, single shot before you have to use the bolt. It's a bolt action rifle, so generally your shots are pretty quick. So you aim down sight, fire, and then you're not aiming down sight. So you don't really have to worry about that with this particular gun. And plus, it makes it so fast that this is fantastic for those quick shots. The FTAC stock here is really good for the aim down sight as well. Same as stipple grip tape. And then sleight of hand's just reload faster. Can't remember how many it has in the mag, but anyway, you'll notice I'm only using 4 out of the 5 because I literally wouldn't add anything. I wouldn't add an optic. That would slow down the aim down sight speed. I wouldn't change the barrel. I don't know what this one is, but if this is a shortened barrel, then I might use it. But obviously, I haven't used this in multiplayer very much, just in custom games, so I don't know what that actually is. But if this was shorter, yeah, I probably would use it. Because the other two, yeah, they make the aim down sight speed worse. So the aim of this was to make it better. And then the muzzle, yeah, again, I mean, flash guard's kind of pointless, in my opinion. So none of these are really going to be useful. And again, you can see I haven't really unlocked a lot because, like I said, this is only for custom games. So I've barely used it outside of that. And I think the only reason it's leveled up at all is from the few times I've played gunfight. That's pretty much it. Yeah, I probably could use it in actual multiplayer, but yeah, I have a different style. Anyway, then this one, yeah, cold-blooded, amps, that sort of thing, and stim, so might. And then the last one on here is the 725. Again, this is a different version of the 725. So again, this one's for looks. This whole loadout's for looks. So this one is just replaced the guard because it gets rid of the wood. I've replaced that with something that doesn't get rid of the wood, and it means better aim down sight speed and recoil control. Again, I don't aim down sight, so this is mostly for the recoil control, which it doesn't have too much for me anyway. But again, I'm playing on PC, so I don't really notice recoil as much as some others might. 1mm laser, yeah, it's all pretty much the same thing. The FAL, however, again, this is for looks, but this is still quite functional. So the 1mm laser for the hipfire accuracy. Now this thing is not great for hip firing, but once you add the 1mm laser, it actually does make a fair amount of difference. So that's worth doing if you think you're going to be using this in that sort of situation. Particularly if you are using something that's like a 3.25 times magnification. So yeah, but like with all of these, experiment with it a bit. The bipod, so that when you're crouching or prone, you have it says there recoil control. Stipple grip tape for the aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed, and FMJ. Now you could swap something out from this, maybe FMJ. In fact, I would probably do that. I would swap FMJ for something like the close quarter stock, but since this gun was designed, well, at least this loadout was set up for looks, that would ruin the wood aesthetic here, so that's why I'm not using it. So that's all of my main loadouts. I will just show you what I'm doing. So I also have a slot that I use for my challenge, or whatever my current challenge is. So I want to show you the valve, since that's the same as the other valve that's here, so no difference there. Oh, the stock's different. I think I replaced, was it FMJ? Yeah, so that was the only difference here. But as far as the Bizon goes, that's something that's not anywhere else, so I was doing a challenge with this recently, so I may as well show you what I've got here. So the barrel I'm using here gives me better damage range and bullet velocity, 1mW laser for the hip fire, skeleton stock for the aim down sight speed, stipple grip tape for the same reason, plus the sprint to fire speed, and FMJ for hitting people through those walls as they're going around corners and that sort of thing. Nothing too special, but this is really good SMG. I quite like it. So that's why I thought I'd show you this. May as well. So yeah, other than that, Killstreaks that I use, I tend to, well, I select the infantry assault vehicle over the Wilson, since if the map, so you'll see some of the maps support the infantry assault vehicle, like Arklov Peak and Grasna Raid, and if you get this kill streak on one of those maps, then the tank, you'll drop a tank, and that can be quite fun. But if it's a different map that doesn't support the tank, then it'll just default to the Wilson. So it's one of those things where, in my opinion, you may as well select the tank, because if the map doesn't support the tank, well, you get the Wilson either way. So instead of selecting the Wilson, just select the tank. But yeah, that's up to you. I use the VTOL only in game modes other than S&D. If I'm playing S&D, I'll use UAV and help out my team. Plus the VTOL can be a bit loud sometimes, particularly S&D. You generally want things pretty quiet so you and your team can hear. So I don't really use the VTOL in S&D. I'll switch that out with the UAV. But I'll still use the chopper gunner, even though I rarely actually get to use the chopper gunner in S&D. It does happen, and when it does, it's pretty brutal. So yeah, so the way it is set up now, this is how I use it in every other game mode. But like I said, if I'm playing S&D, I'll just swap out the VTOL with the UAV. And then for field upgrades, like everybody who plays S&D, I'll use dead silence. But if I'm playing something like domination, in fact domination particularly, I'll use the trophy system, because I get sick of grenades and rocket launchers and all that silly stuff. So yeah, I'll use trophy system most of the time. And then if I'm playing S&D, I'll use dead silence. So yes, I've tried to keep this one shorter. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll be doing more like this at some point. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one.